it is Tuesday, August 17th at 8:30 a.m. Welcome commissioners, staff, members of the public. So glad that you are taking your time today for us at the Finance and Physical Resources Committee. With that, I will open up public comment. Is there any public that would like to address the Finance and Physical Resource Committee this morning? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment, and that will bring us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, or discussion on the consent agenda. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is passed. That brings us to item number 3 from the Administrator's Office. Jenny?
Thank you. The action requested is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $8.4 million to the 2021-22 Indigent Defense Special Revenue Fund budget to approve a full-time Indigent Defense Administrator Analyst position, to approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement contingent upon corporate council approval. In 2013, the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission was created by the state legislature to ensure the state's public defense system is fair, cost-effective, and constitutional, while simultaneously protecting public safety and accountability. The MIDC created 8 standards that courts and their funding units need to adhere to in creating its indigent defense plan. Plans for standards 1, 2, 3, and 4 were reviewed and approved by the MIDC in 2018 and were implemented by the county in 2019. For the 2021-22 grant period, the county is required to include a plan to implement Standard 5. Approved plan components for continuing the program include, but are not limited to, correctional officers at the jail, a program administrator, required attorney training, funds for expert witnesses, and purchase of equipment. Additions for the 2021-22 period include support for investigators and social workers managed by the Kent County Office of the Defender. Funding for a full-time Indigent Defense Administration Analyst position is included in the proposed budget as recommended by the Legislative and Human Resources Committee at its meeting on August 10th. The County General Fund contribution to the program is capped by statute. The grant period is October 1 this year through September 30th next year. The final grant agreement will be reviewed and approved by corporate counsel prior to signature.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Support. Okay, moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Good seeing everybody. My first question, just is this new money, the general fund, the $2.4 million, or is this a kind of a transfer of what we had been paying for indigent defense? Or like what's the net for the general fund?
So the statute calls for what's called the local share. That local share was set based on 3 years of spending history, and I think it was years 2013, 14, and 15. So that is a set amount that's been certified. There's an inflation factor applied to that each year, but it's only applied individually to that certified amount. So there's an annual contribution called the local share to the program. Everything required for the standards over and above that comes from the state grant.
So basically, this isn't one of those gifts from the state of Michigan where they required us to add more dollars. This is what we had been spending, and they're matching it.
Actually, they're more than matching.
Correct.
They're paying the bulk of it.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. That brings us to item number 4 from friend of the court. Jenny?
It's recommended, the action requested is recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Friend of the Court's FY 22-23 Title 4D Cooperative Reimbursement Program Agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services to accept and appropriate $22.8 million from MDHHS to the Special Projects Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement and approve grant extensions and changes within 15% of the original award. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services provides funding to counties to operate a cooperative reimbursement program to enforce court orders for child support. Beginning in FY 2017, the state moved to a 5-year grant application cycle to reduce the workload and processing requirements for the state and the county. For 2022 and 23, a 2-year grant extension has been added. Final funding awards will be reviewed and adjusted annually, with general fund support included in the annual county operating budget appropriation. The projected allocations for the period October 1 through September 30th, 2023 are as follows. $11 million for 2021 to 2022, and $11.7 million in 2022 to 2023, and you can see the breakdown there between county program and state share. The extension application proposes that the Friend of the Court continue to operate with 108 full-time positions, including 3 Sheriff Road Patrol deputy positions assigned to the FOC to focus entirely on warrant enforcement. In addition, the grant will cover a portion of personnel costs of 14 staff from the Circuit Court Family Division. Those are referees and referees clerks. In the event grant funding is eliminated or decreased, the positions will be eliminated unless continuation of funding is approved pursuant to the fiscal policy on grants. The final program agreement will be reviewed and approved by Corporate Counsel prior to signature.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
In support?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Dan, you might as well come up. I kind of know the answers to this, at least I hope I do, since I'm on the Friend of the Court Advisory Committee, but I just wanted to put the Friend of the Court on the spot and welcome him today. You know, as I like to say, it's good to catch staff doing good things. And so anyways, my questions, 2 of them, Dan, are in that 4th bullet point when it talks about the 3 sheriff's deputies working on warrant enforcement. When we first approved that, that was like a special grant, and now it's rolled into this larger grant. So that's the easy question.
We do have special funding, our collections on medical for state aid. And so, I can't remember exactly.
Dan, could you talk into the mic?
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Yeah, we do have some special funding for that. It's 15% of collections for state aid on medical, and that's where that comes from.
Okay. And then, since it was relatively controversial when we started the program, and we started with 2 deputies, this says 3, and can you tell us a little bit how that program has been working?
Yeah, we now have 3 full-time deputies, and our performance measure is to resolve 85% of the warrants they come across without arrest. The last full year we did this was 2019, and they were 94% successful without arrest. There was a moratorium on FOC warrants during the pandemic that's recently opened up.
All right.
Elections, the money they bring in has grown substantially each year, and I have the 4th annual report that'll be coming out next week on the program.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad my memory's working since I did know the answer to that, but again, wanted to share that with the rest of you because again, Dan, if you don't know, Dan Fontek is our Friend of the Court. Should ask him to introduce himself, but he and his staff continue to do great work. It's been good for me to be on that advisory committee to really see it and be, again, to help that connection. I hope Dan feels the same, but yeah. So, anyways, it's been good to learn how that process works because usually Friend of the Court is followed by a few expletives if you personally have to deal with Friend of the Court because you unfortunately had a divorce and have children and all that. So anyways, thank you for you and your staff's continued awesome work.
Commissioner Womack?
Yes, I have a question, sir. broader, because it says entirely on warrant enforcement.
Well, they, it's kind of I think of it as an outreach program as well. As I mentioned, in 2019, 94% of the warrants were resolved without arrest. They will go to a person's home, they're plain clothes, not visibly armed. Cars are not marked that they're from the sheriffs, and they go and have a dialogue with those who owe child support. And before this whole before they have a warrant, we've gone through a whole enforcement process to try to draw them in, talk to them, tell them of their options, help them get a job even through our Resources for Parents program. But then these deputies go out and they have a conversation with folks. They try to see what they can do to resolve it. Sometimes they refer them to our Resources for Parents program. Tell us what services are available. So it's more, I think of it more as an outreach than enforcement.
Okay, I brought it up because I know the community was very concerned. A local law enforcement that's picking. How they were gonna interact with the public is the way you just spoke. Have we seen increased child support warrants and behind in child support warrant during the pandemic?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we, our show cause hearings, when folks don't appear for those hearings, that's when the warrant issues. There was a few months we didn't have any hearings, and stopped in March and then we started up virtual Zoom hearings. Those were limited in number. We did have some warrants issue, but again, there was a moratorium on arrests. But deputies did, and some of our arraignment case managers, they worked on, we had like over 3,500 warrants to work on during this time. So although warrants didn't increase, they worked on the old warrants and they resolved quite a few. We're way down substantially.
When is the moratorium lifted? Has
Um,
it already been lifted?
Yes, last week, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that information.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 5 from the Health Department. Jenny?
The action requested is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve Amendment Number 5 to the Health Department's Comprehensive Planning, Budgeting, and Contracting Agreement through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Accept and appropriate $950,000 to the 2020-2021 Health Fund budget, and to authorize the chair to or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The Health Department has received additional COVID-19 immunization funding of $950,000 to be used for costs related to the administration of the COVID-19 vaccination. The additional award brings the total COVID-19 immunization funding to $1.35 million for fiscal year 2021. Eligible expenses include staffing of the vaccination clinics, supplies, communications and outreach, paid media, contractual services, venue rentals, transportation costs, and indirect costs. These funds will allow the department to continue to focus efforts on providing COVID-19 vaccination options throughout Kent County, as well as working with community partners to identify specific community vaccination sites for vulnerable populations. Funding will also provide support to continue the communications and outreach campaign around the importance of getting vaccinated and addressing vaccine hesitancy in the community. The grant period is effective retroactively to December 1st, 2020, and must be completed by September 30th, 2021. Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Is there a motion to approve? So moved. In support? Moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Mr. Bukowski?
Yeah, I guess just, since Dr. London is here, this, this, we're approving it today to go to the board next week, but we have to spend it by September 30th, and then, so, I mean, are the vaccines happening, is this, how's all this working? It just,
Good morning.
yeah,
And I brought Gail Brink, our finance director, with us. I've learned that finance is really a science, and I want to make sure I've got the right science for the questions.
But I'm bummed.
This is funding that we've been expecting from the state, and it really is helping to pay for the program we've had in place all fiscal year. And we have moved money from our general vaccine programs to do this. We've also experienced less revenue because we have been charging Medicaid and insurance when it's available, but it's not always available. It's not always convenient, especially in the field with mobile clinics when we're providing services, people don't have their information. We don't allow that to be an obstacle to providing the vaccine in that moment. So this is funding that the state had promised to us. They asked us about a month ago, all the health departments, how much we needed in order to make our budgets whole for this current year, and this is that amount for us. Gail, anything that you would add to that?
No, just, in the meantime, well, if you recall and that's been a while, but the action request we had before, said that funding would take us through April. This funding will get us to the rest of the year, so in the meantime, before the state notified us of the award, we were using our regular vaccination appropriation funds, because that's, we were doing vaccination. So happen is then that, now this money will then replace the money we were using for our regular vaccination.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
Yeah, I just want to follow up. I kind of like the approach of trying to address the vulnerable populations. I think that's if it, somewhere down the line, if, Lord knows, if it becomes a do you have the flexibility? I'm not for, the like, targeting the populations and the outreach. So what happens to this if somewhere down the line somebody comes?
Well, I don't anticipate that, and certainly in the next 6 weeks, which is what this funding covers. And so this is really us carrying on with the plans and strategies we have in place with our messaging, and our communications team continues to work on messaging, addressing vaccine hesitancy and looking at areas where we are vulnerable and where we've seen less vaccine uptake, and focusing our mobile clinics and our community clinics in locations in the community where, for any number of reasons, people either haven't had access to vaccine or we just see a lower rate of vaccine. And we do see that in different parts of the community. We watch that carefully with the data as well and try to focus these interventions on that.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. That brings us to item number 6 from the Sheriff's Office. Jenny?
The action requested is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept the FY 2020 State Homeland Security Grant from the State of Michigan Department of State Police to appropriate $286,000 to the 2021-22 Sheriff Emergency Management Homeland Security Budget in the Special Projects Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. The Michigan Department of State Police Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division provides federal pass-through funds for Homeland Security programs. The purpose of the FY20 Homeland Security Grant Program is to prevent, deter, respond to, and recover from incidents of national significance, including but not limited to threats and incidents of terrorism. Starting with the grant year 2006, Homeland Security grant funding allotments were allocated on a regional basis. Kent County was placed into Region 6, which is part of a 13-county region. The fiduciary for the grant is the West Michigan Regional Medical Consortium. Grant funds will be used to cover the personnel costs of the Homeland Security Planner, as well as for equipment purchases as listed on the grant summary document. The grant period is September 1, 2020 to May 31, 2023. Corporate Counsel will review and approve the amendment as to form.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? In support?
Support.
Thank you. Moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I had a question. This is definitely much needed funds that I'll be supporting, but it's a little off subject of this, but on subject. First, I just want to pay my respects because of the death of Deputy Proxmire in Kalamazoo. I know the sheriff departments in Michigan, there's kinship there, so, just letting you know that we acknowledge that another life has been senseless lost to violence. And just want to pay my respects to all our sheriff departments here in Kent County and wish for their health and safety. But we also heard that the governor is going to give $75 million to local law enforcement, so this is going to be a short answer. Is some of that coming to our sheriff department when they say local, or are they just talking about police departments in the municipalities and cities?
Good morning, and thank you for the thoughts. To be honest with you, I haven't seen that, so I don't quite understand the funding and how it's going to trickle down, whether it's to the cities or the counties or through the state, to be quite honest with you. So devil's in the details, and we're waiting to see them.
When you hear local law enforcement from the state level, does that usually include sheriff departments, or that's just a broad statement when they say local law enforcement?
It's a broad statement, so at times it does, others it does not, so.
Okay, sorry to get you up for such a short question, but thank you.
Hey, any other questions on the action item? Yes, Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Related to the equipment that you're purchasing, it just states in the action item that it's listed in the grant summary, but then the summary is a summary. Is there like any tactical equipment in there, or is this more supportive of, anyways, leave it at that.
So, good morning, Matt Grozier, I'm your Emergency Management Coordinator. In terms of tactical equipment, I think there was one item on there that might have been a little bit misconstrued, and that was the ballistics protective gear. Those are actually bulletproof vests for fire departments, firefighters, to respond in during an active shooter event. We've learned that that's the best opportunity to start saving lives is early on in that incident, while the scene is still, we'll call it, warm. So that's about the most tactical represented equipment that's in there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I had a quick question about the outdoor warning assessment. Can you, David, explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So there are roughly 120 outdoor warning sirens, most often associated with tornadoes. Those are almost exclusively owned by each of the local. We are looking to do to try to determine if there's any opportunities for us to better coordinate of those sirens right now. I can. Very small area, which is just the southeast corner of the county. Sunny day up in Kent City, but they're siren. Try to do our best to make the warning information that we put out as relevant as possible. Assessing whether or not we have an opportunity to do.
Great. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Morgan?
Hi, good morning, Matt. How are you? Hey, you mentioned in here, the EOCs, and I know the county has an EOC, and it's specifically for that, it's not for the dispatch centers.
Correct. This is basically for the emergency operations centers at both the city and the county.
Okay. And as far as the ballistic vest, you're not gonna forget about the ambulance.
What I would tell you there is we are open to those projects. Our committee meets later today at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, well, we're involved in that too, so. Let's get crazy.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 7 from Information Technology. Jenny?
The action requested is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve an amendment to an agreement to share costs between Kent County, City of Grand Rapids, and Kent Intermediate School District for a fiber optic communication network, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the amendment and any related documents. The IT department has an approved project to install a new fiber optic connection between the Sheriff's Department and its secondary data center. The new fiber optic cabling is planned to run alongside an existing fiber optic cabling run that is jointly owned by the county, Grand Rapids, and KISD under an existing cost-sharing agreement. Grand Rapids has requested we amend the cost-sharing agreement to reflect the addition of the new fiber optic cabling run, which will affect the amount each party pays in the event repairs are required. The contract amendment will be reviewed and approved as to form prior to signing by Corporate Counsel's office.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Okay, moved and supported, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 7 from Fiscal Services. Jenny?
Action requested is to
8, sorry, item number 8.
is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to transfer $630,000 from the Strategic Capital Project in the Capital Improvement Program Fund to the North County Campus CIP project. On January 23, 2020, the Board of Commissioners created a North County Campus project in the 2020 Capital Improvements Program Fund with an appropriation of $12.5 million from the Strategic Capital Project in the CIP fund. This project will provide the necessary infrastructure, utilities and site work, and building construction for a new sheriff's substation and a new North County Health Clinic. The architectural and engineering planning for the project is complete, and bids for the project have recently been received. The lowest responsive bid is approximately 5% or $630,000 over the originally estimated project budget. The prices are related to the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on the economy and increased cost of construction projects due to supply chain disruption, shortage of skilled trade workers, and higher labor costs over the past 1.5 to 2 years. It's recommended that an additional $630,000 be transferred from the Strategic Capital Project to the North County Campus Project in the CIP fund. The Strategic Capital CIP project was established in 2015 to set aside funding for future capital needs and to reduce the size of debt associated with large capital projects. Any use of the strategic capital funding must be appropriated by the board for a specific project before it can be spent.
Thank you. Okay, moved and supported, and now we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. We'll start with Commissioner Morgan.
Well, thank you very much. I think 5% really isn't that big of an increase, to be honest with you. And just to let everybody know, we bought this property, I think, back in 2004 or 5, so it's been on the drawing board a long, long time. And if you hang around long enough, sometimes you get to see projects completed. So just really, really excited to see this thing move forward. And I'm just saying 5%. I'm building a station up in Cedar Springs, and I'm building the identical station that I built in Grand Rapids Township, or Grattan Township, for $320,000. It's costing me $507,000. So just to give you kind of a comparison. So I think 5% is pretty darn close to our estimate. So that's my soapbox. Thank you.
Commissioner Bukowski.
Well, I'm going to dance on that soapbox with Commissioner Morgan, because when I first started reading this agenda today, it's like, oh my goodness. You know, a $12 million project, I was expecting the decimal point in the other direction based on what we're hearing about materials and labor and all that stuff. So I also echo that of 5%. I mean, it's real money. At the same time, it seems pretty reasonable based on the news we hear with costs and everything. So keep up the great work, and looking forward to a ribbon cutting up there. Yeah.
Hey, Al, do you have a minute to come on up? I have a quick question.
Just a minute for Al.
Just a minute for Al, that's it. You get 1 minute, Al. How about the timeline for this, if this passes?
Well, the construction would commence probably within 30 days as things are mobilized. And it's about a 15-month project during normal times. So I don't want to commit and set a date yet for the ribbon cutting because we're in some, we're not in calm waters yet, but it would be normally a 15-month construction.
How about the groundbreaking?
Yeah, if, there's been some discussion on that. I'm not,
As you can tell, I'm pretty excited about it.
yeah, we might just want to, and I can be, I'm a faithful soldier, I'll do what I'm told, but we might just want to get right to construction and save the groundbreaking and save the time for ribbon cutting, if you'd support that.
Okay, that's all that I had, and I think I did it within a minute. Thank you, Al.
Hey, thanks, Al.
Thank you for your
Alright.
support and confidence.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. That brings us to item number 9 from the Administrator's Office. Jenny?
The action requested is recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate an additional $619,550 to the 2021 Senior Millage Fund budget from Senior Millage Fund reserves. Funding for the senior millage provides services such as meals, transportation, healthy aging programs, legal services, prescription assistance, weatherization, and in-home care. The Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan administers the senior millage and contracts with agencies that provide services and programming. The Board of Commissioners approved $12.18 million for the 2021 service plan via Resolution 11/19/2023. Due to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, senior millage funds were not expended in FY 2020 as planned. It is requested that an additional $619,550 be appropriated from senior millage fund reserves to the 2021 senior millage fund budget for providing additional services and programming in FY '21.
Is there a motion to approve?
Or,
All right, moved and supported, and we will take questions, comments, and discussion. Commissioner Bukowski?
My quick comment is I'm going to continue to abstain as Disability Advocates as a senior millage provider.
Got it. Anyone else? Commissioner Womack?
I don't know if there's anyone here to answer this question. It's just great what the senior millage is doing for our seniors, and just trying to see what has been the extra needs besides vaccination for some of our seniors. If there's anyone here to answer, and if not, I'll do my own research on it.
Have any specifics about the additional needs that AAA West Michigan has experienced this year, but we could check in with them, see if they'd like to share some thoughts, and we can pass that along to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Green?
I mean, I can quickly say that, again, with my hat as a service provider, early on, and it was mentioned when they reported a couple months ago, senior millage allowed the providers to pivot to wellness checks and provide that more direct support. Senior millage staff have been really involved with transportation because they oversee RideLink. So again, they've been doing as much flexibility within current contracts and then other pieces to make sure those needs are being met for our seniors throughout the county. So again, I'll just leave my statement of fact there, no advocacy. So,
Excellent.
but
Commissioner
still do
Green?
more research.
Do you have some additional comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. I don't need an answer right now because it won't affect my vote, but I just wanted to, I know we talked about taking this from the reserves, and I wanted to see what that reserve balance was, if anybody knew that. Otherwise, I can get an email later on.
The balance as of December 31st, 2021, or 2020 was $1.4 million.
Thank you.
So this will increase that, Marvin?
utilize some of those funds that are sitting on the sidelines, so that'll,
Okay,
if it was completely spent, that would bring it down to $800,000 balance.
got it. Great. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, and abstain, same sign. All right, that motion passes. That brings us to item 10 from Fiscal Services. Jeff, would you like to chat?
Love to chat. Good morning.
Great.
Good to see everyone today. So this is the financial overview for the second quarter ending June 30 of this year. I'll try to be brief, but you will see overall revenues have increased from 43.3 million to 46.4 million, or 7.2%, and expenditures have decreased from 84 million to 80.2 million, or 4.6%. So overall trending very well for the year. Do we have the report available?
They have it.
Oh, good, okay, sorry. You go to page 2, you can see the categories of revenues and expenses. Some of the major differences through the second quarter. You see taxes are up $3 million, from 3 million to 3.2, or 2.9%, and that's just due to taxable value growth and not unexpected. Charges for services, you can see have seen nice growth since the pandemic. Some of our fees are coming back. Real estate transfer taxes and parks admin fees have seen a rebound since last year when everything was pretty much shut down. So that's a good sign. Interest and rents is a bad sign. It's going down. As you know, there's probably, interest rates are about 0 right now. So we saw an 18% reduction in interest and rents. And then we did get a pledge from the Sequia Trust for the Meadows, which increased the other revenue category. Significant expenditure variances. We combined all the wages and benefits. You can see it's down 8.4%, and that's primarily due to we moved some money out from the sheriff's budget to the CARES funding to approve those projects in a previous meeting. So that transfer's been done. And then capital is down a bit, and that's due to just timing of vehicle replacements. So those are the major variances. I don't know if there's any questions now on any of those. Okay, moving on to page 4, you will see a little bit different representation. This is by department. So the revenues are the same. However, you can see the departmental changes. And again, the sheriff is down 16%, and that's due to moving those wages out primarily for that CARES funding for the capital projects. That's the major change on this page. Other than that, things are just trending fairly normal. There's always timing differences throughout the year on expenses and revenue, so nothing that I'm seeing is out of the ordinary on page 4. If you move to page 5, you can see we have $82.5 million in fund balance at the end of 2020, of which 42.7 is assigned to cash flow and 27.9 to economic stabilization, and unassigned 7.2 million, so very good, healthy reserves. Page 6, you'll see we have 66 days of cash reserves on hand. That's up from last year of 50 days, or just over $50 million, so very good position. And then the last page of the report, we like to include this. You can see why we keep reserves. There's always a low point before taxes start coming in July. We're a little bit ahead again in previous years due to that previously. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Bukowski.
Just real quick, then, how will we see the CARES Act, at the end of the year? Is it a special fund? Or how, because it's not going through the general fund, it's.
Yeah, the CARES Act was labeled, it's a special revenue fund. That's where we've been accounting for all the expenses in there, and that's required to be spent down by the end of this year.
Right.
So it should see a zero balance.
Okay, so again, as you mentioned, that transfer of significant costs within the sheriff department, it's in that column, not here.
We moved CARES money into actually the capital improvement fund, so that's a multi-year fund, so that'll stay. But again, by the rules, the actual CARES fund itself needs to be spent by the end of this fiscal year. So may need to bring one more item near the end of the year if there's some cleanup to do, but unless they by some means end that program, which.
Yes, Commissioner Morgan, please.
So the CARES funding is in what line item?
It's a special revenue fund and its own separate fund.
Okay, and is it on the P and L then?
It's both, because it'll obviously have a cash balance in it, assets and liabilities, and then the revenues and expenses flow through it as well.
That'll be squared out by.
Okay, anyone else? All right, that's just a report. I don't believe there's any action on that, right, Linda?
Correct.
Okay. With that, we'll
Thank you.
move to, thank you, Jeff. We'll move to Commissioner Miscellaneous. Is there any Commissioner Miscellaneous from the Finance and Physical Resources Committee this morning? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Our next meeting date is Tuesday, September 7th at 8:30.
I am Kent County. I am Kent County.
I am Kent County.
We are 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 Kent County.
Bayard, Kent County. Ami, Kent County.
Somos, Kent County.
Mas-Ira, Kent County.
We are Kent County. We are Kent County. We are Kent County. Oh yeah.